What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we are going to be discussing The Division because something very interesting has happened with that game. Now, I used to play a ton of The Division when it first came out, played and posted a lot of The Division content, but as time went on, I sort of just kind of stopped playing The Division in favor of covering Destiny full time. The Division, it definitely had its upsides. I, certainly didn't hate the game or anything, but it definitely had its issues, glaringly obvious issues. And I think a lot of players, maybe watching this video right now, a lot of people were playing The Division. I had a lot of hype for that game when it first came out on my channel. But then, you can just see, the views go down and down and down because those issues started to become more relevant to them, and they just kind of stopped playing the game. And I think a lot of people are maybe in the same position I was, where you've got The Division, you maybe even bought the Season's Pass. I know I did. I believed in that game from the beta, but you haven't been playing it for a while. Maybe you've been keeping tabs on what's going on, but that's what this video is about, because the Division is lit now, fam. I mean, but seriously, it's actually so good. The Division is at a great state right now. Just recently, it had the launch of the Survivor DLC, along with patch 1.5, introducing some more improvements as well. So, I think even if you don't have the Survivor DLC, you just have the base game, you're still going to get the newest 1.5 patch. And speaking of that, speaking of people who don't have the Season's Pass, for example, and don't want to pay for the actual DLCs, you're still getting a much improved game. I talked about this in my last Division video. They recently introduced World Tiers. So before, pretty much all you had to do for the end game was just the same missions you already did on a higher difficulty or the Dark Zone. And a lot of people don't like the Dark Zone. Well, now you don't have to play the Dark Zone. You can play what is referred to as the Light Zone, because you can just raise the world tier, you raise the level of all the enemies in the entire map, and you can just go wherever you want, kill them, and get relevant loot. And there's roaming bosses, and there's supply drops, and there's pretty sweet activities just in the normal map. So that's awesome for the end game. But recently, and why we're making this video today, why I'm talking about this today, is that all of these improvements have been made, and the Division has been getting, in the background, the Division has seriously just been getting a little bit better, and a little bit better, and then another patch comes out, and a little bit better. So it keeps improving itself. It keeps getting better, and now the Survival DLC is out, and this is really kind of the final cherry on top. I think it's the reason to really motivate people to go back and play the Division, or potentially pick it up if you haven't already. I think you could probably get the Division plus the Season's Pass for some sort of deal coming out probably soon on Steam or what have you, but it's something that you should seriously look into because survival is really interesting. Survival mode in the Division has taken, I'd say, maybe a little bit more than a little bit of inspiration, but it's basically like the Hunger Games or Battle Royale or the H1Z1 King of the Kill, where you go in to this map. You go in to what is essentially a remade world in the Division. It's the normal Division map as you would play right now, but it's been slightly remade. Certain entrances are blocked off where in the normal map they are available. There's a lot more snow, and that's replicated both in the scenery and in actually visually. There's blizzards and stuff, and it's hard to see. And so you go into this entire world map, the entire world map of the Division is available in this survival game mode, and you try to survive. And your goal is to make your way into the Dark Zone and extract. Now, very interestingly, there are two modes of this. There's a PvP mode, which is if you see another player, you can kill them just like the Dark Zone. That's probably going to be the most intense experience. But there's also a PvE mode, and that's what you're seeing in the background gameplay. And this is really interesting because you can't actually kill other players. Well, actually you kind of can, but you can't actually engage and start shooting other players and lower their health. But you're still very much competing with them. I was surprised how interesting of a dynamic it was. Even you'd think it would be more cooperation, but if you kill an enemy in this mode and they drop loot, it's a free-for-all. Everyone around sees it, so you're all running in there and trying to compete with these random NPC, or not NPCs, but these random other players, trying to get that loot, trying to get that, purple SMG that dropped. So that's really interesting. Also, when I said you can kill them, you kind of can. If someone gets downed, you have the choice to revive them, but it costs you a med kit, or you can execute them and take their loot. So it's still pretty sketchy. Like, you can't technically kill other players outright, but you can go around executing people. So you definitely do want to be a little bit wary of other players, and it's a pretty cool dynamic. But this survival mode, I absolutely loved it. Like, it was so fun playing it. You start off with nothing. A pistol and a bunch of green gear. None of your gear in the normal world, none of your gear, none of your skills transfer. You start on the same level as everyone else, and you're running around and you're looting stuff, and you're looting materials as well. Like, you have to keep track of so many different things. It's really enthralling because you have you're cold, so you're trying to loot more clothes, and you put those clothes on, and then that lets you survive out in the blizzard longer. But you're not really gonna have any good clothes when you first start, so you actually have to move around the map, going from fire pit to fire pit. Like, there's these fires burning in barrels, and you have to stand by them to get warm. And if you don't, if you just go into the blizzard for too long, your health will just start to lower, and then keep getting lower and lower and lower until you eventually die. So you really got to be on top of that cold situation. You're thirsty, which makes your health, I think, regenerate slower, so you're trying to find like soda to drink, you're trying to find food and stuff. You're infected, like you also have an infection, and in a certain amount of time you'll just die. Like, it gives you 45 minutes. It's like you have 45 minutes and then you're dead. And what you can do is you can take medicine, you can take painkillers, and you delay the countdown. Like, you take medicine and then it doesn't count down for a few minutes, so you get a few more minutes of survival time. But what this whole game mode really encompasses, and why I absolutely love it, is that some of the best moments for me in any loot-based game, Borderlands, Mass Effect 3, Destiny, some of the funnest moments, I'm sure you guys may be in the same boat as me, is that when you're just starting the game. When you're just starting the game, when you're just starting a new character in Borderlands and Destiny, whatever, and like every piece of loot is relevant. Like, every time you see like a blue drop or a purple drop, you run up to it and you're like, oh. Or when you get your first blue drop or your first purple drop and you're like, yes, like a purple SMG or a purple sniper, this is awesome, this is gonna go with my build. Survival mode gives you that same experience, but lets you keep replaying it. Like, you don't have to start a new character. You just keep playing survival mode. You start from scratch, and then you're excited by those blue drops, those purple drops. You get the experience of starting a new character every single time you play it, which, as someone who loves loot and loves loot-based games, that's so awesome. Like, that's one of the best things about this survival mode. And so you're collecting all this loot, and you're trying to, improve your character while also sharing with, you can go in with a fire team of 4 people, so you can also sharing with your fire team. You're also crafting skills, like healing skills. All your skills you have to craft first. So you're just slowly building up your player in gear and abilities to eventually make them strong enough to go into the dark zone and extract. Now, we actually, as you can see here, we tried to extract. We didn't have enough skills. We weren't really as built up as we should have been, and we got destroyed. There's a mechanic where once you extract, some guys kind of run in, and like really powerful enemies run in and engage you like right away. I'm not a huge fan of that mechanic. It kind of seems like a cheap way to end the game, but you definitely have to be like on your shit in order to survive it, and definitely you need to have those healing skills, especially because otherwise you're gonna run out of medkits, because you have to loot medkits. You start with like no medkits. You have to actually go out and find them and loot them. You can't just go to a safe house and get 5 medkits immediately. So it's pretty sketchy. It's a pretty like insane and intense experience, and it's something that, a lot of shooters don't have. Again, you're getting the same thing as the H1Z1 Battle Royale, but you're getting it in the Division. It's not, the entire game isn't dedicated to this one game mode. It's a game mode within the game. And that's kind of a cool aspect too. Like, once you do survival mode, so you go in there, you get your loot, you try to extract, you die, whatever. As you can see, we died. But when you load out of survival mode, when your match is done, you still actually, depending on your score, depending on how well you did, you get a certain amount of caches, and you can open these caches and they give you very relevant endgame loot. And this loot, of course, goes to your normal character. When you restart survival, you're not going to start it with any of this loot. So it's kind of cool that you have like this separate game mode. You start with like none of your loot, you do the whole thing, and then when you complete that game mode and you come back to kind of the real world of the Division, you get a bunch of new loot for your character, building them up, maybe letting you do the normal Dark Zone, do the Light Zone on a higher world tier, do the Underground DLC. Like, it's a really cool thing that gives you a totally different experience while still making sense for the game and still contributing to the end game. Like, it's not like all of the loot goes away at the end of it. You're still getting loot for your overall character so you can do other stuff in the game. It's very well designed, I think. And you know what? I would love to see a version of this in Destiny. Like, Destiny is also a loot-based game. So it wouldn't be too outrageous to suggest that something like this could work in Destiny. Perhaps you could, matchmake in Venus. Like, you have a survival mode or something of the like. I'm sure it'd be called something different on Venus. And there's a bunch of other players. And yes, you'd have to transfer in between the different patrol mode zones. But you could encounter other players. And maybe you could fight them, you could kill them, and then they have to go back and spawn in like a central location or something. Like, of course they could change it around. But the idea of entering into a game mode where you start from scratch and then you start looting again. Again, it gives you that awesome looting experience like when you were just starting Destiny, when you just made a new character and every blue was special and you were looking at stuff and your first purple was so awesome. It gives you that experience again, and it's just a fantastic thing. And I really think that if Bungie put their heads together, they could think of some sort of version of this to implement into Destiny, even if it was just like a classic 6v6 where you start with just base green gear instead of your normal gear, and then every time you kill an enemy, he drops like a blue engram, and when you pick that engram up, it gives you a random blue or potentially purple piece of loot, and then you're equipping your build, you're putting on sniper rifles, you're putting on shotguns, and pulse rifles or whatever, and armor as you're playing the game. Even like have the chance, if you get a double kill or triple kill, it maybe drops an exotic, so you put on a random exotic armor piece or something. That would be pretty freaking sweet if you ask me. So guys, the Division is kind of back at it. Like, back at it again with the good content, honestly. So if you've kind of stowed away your copy of the Division, I know I'm 100% guilty of this. Like, I made the video about going back to the Division a while ago. I wanted to see what's going on. I was very impressed, and I'm even more impressed by the survival mode. It seems like a very fun thing. I'm definitely going to be streaming it, like, with viewers. So, I mean, if you guys are interested in watching that, my Twitch channel is always linked in the description down below, twitch.tv/CacusHD. Hit the follow button, and then you'll be told when I am streaming. But that aside, guys, like I was saying, if your Division is kind of sitting on the shelf, collecting dust, it's time to maybe dust that thing off. Try it out, because survival is a blast. And also, survival, like, speaking of all these players, dusting off the Division and trying it again, survival is great for players who haven't played the game in forever. Because you don't need anything to go into survival. Like, you just need to be level 30, but other than that, you start off with, again, a level playing field. You don't need good loot to play survival, so it's great. It's, like, actually fantastic for returning players who want to just play something, have fun, and at the end screen, if they do well enough in the survival mode, they're actually going to get, like, loot that'll actually help them, relevant to the end game. So, well done, Division devs. This game is so much better than the state it was in when I left it, and I'm very happy to see that. So, that's gonna be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Now, if you did, and you want to see more Division content, maybe we'll start doing a little bit more Division videos, but also Destiny content mainly. Don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, like I said, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.